Military leaders are hoping to address sexual assault and harassment within the country's armed forces. Defense Secretary Austin established an independent commission to review the issue earlier this year. In the end, the panel announced a series of 82 recommendations on how to tackle the crimes. During the review, the RAND Corporation presented the commission with information about the think tank's findings. It says bold action is needed or behaviors will remain a persistent problem for the military. RAND Corporation senior behavioral and social scientist Joie Acosta is here to talk now. She is one of the authors behind that report. So this is very interesting. In this report, you talk about how prevention strategies can help stop sexual assault and harassment. A lot of the conversation has been about how the military handles these situations of sexual assault after they've already occurred. But you're talking about prevention strategies. Why are they so important?
Well, certainly there is a big impact of sexual assault on, the victim's physical and emotional well-being. It can, undermine unit cohesion, trust in leadership, mission focus, and ultimately military readiness. And so, while it's important to have a system in place to really support reporting, encouraging more reporting at the lower level before behavior becomes, escalates into an assault is critically important. And, while it's clear that the DoD is taking steps to really increase their prevention capabilities, there's still a fairly wide gap between where they're at currently and where they need to be in order to prevent these incidents from happening and to prevent the kind of downstream impacts on both the victims and on mission readiness as a whole.
Right. Like it's obvious that, preventing sexual assault and sexual harassment is sort of a good thing in and of itself, but it also sends a message about the military's attitude towards that behavior. So should an incident happen, it's taken very seriously. What are some of the things that the military needs to do to improve its prevention strategies?
I think first and foremost, except for in the Air Force, there are no dedicated professional personnel that focus solely on prevention efforts. And so a critical first step is, they're currently undermanned and under-resourced. And so they do need a dedicated, well-trained and professional workforce. And while service members do receive some training in prevention, they need to move beyond just trying to raise awareness and focus on building the skills that will be needed in order to prevent these incidents from happening. And those trainings need to be conducted by a well-trained workforce. So I think those are some of the critical first steps. In addition, there are, while that prevention capability is being built, since there is, I think, such a wide gap to close, there are additional changes that can happen to support, better reporting of incidents, at a lower level before they escalate. For example, removing, the equal opportunity personnel from the chain of command of their victims and their offenders could help, encourage trust in the response system.
Mm-hmm. And is that kind of the primary reason that people don't come forward when they are the victims? Because you found that many cases of sexual assault and harassment, they simply just go unreported. Is it a lack of trust in the system?
I think there's a number of contributing barriers to reporting, including a policy, of addressing reports at the lowest level possible, the lack of a really centralized reporting system that can follow a service member throughout their career, a fear of retaliation, and limited accountability, on the part of commanders. So I think all of those barriers can create an environment where incidents go unreported. For example, there were about 1,600 reports of sexual harassment in fiscal year 2019. And a confidential survey of service members actually estimated about 116,000 service members experienced, sexual harassment during that same time period. So there is quite a big gap in reporting currently. So, ensuring that service members have multiple channels to report, including confidential channels outside their chain of command, tracking, incidents of inappropriate behavior at the lowest level, before they escalate, taking immediate action for low-level unprofessional conduct, and really having a system that can track these incidents across, kind of the career trajectory of service members is very important.
Mm-hmm. And here's what people, need to know. Not only is this behavior criminal, and so it should not be allowed, but also it has a direct impact on military readiness, doesn't it?
Yes, absolutely. It can, many individuals that are sexually assaulted separate from the service. Um, you know, the environment or the cohesion of the units where these incidents are occurring can be damaged. It can also influence or undermine trust in leadership, and take away from the mission focus. So both, the impacts on the unit as well as the loss of qualified, dedicated service members can really, harm mission readiness overall, make it difficult for the military to be, effective in completing and addressing their mission.
All right. Joie Acosta, thank you so much.
Thank you.